I'm Lois Letchford, author of the book Reverse to Memoir, co-founder of Teaching Students with Dyslexia, Reading from Eureka. And today we're looking at a man called James Hutton, a Scottishman who was born in 1726, died in 1797. And it says, the Scottish father of geology, who showed how landscapes form and how our world is truly ancient. Hutton is often called the father of geology and born in Edinburgh, Scotland, the son of a prominent merchant who died when James was 3. He planned to go into the legal profession, but his interest shifted and he studied medicine instead. By the time he gained his medical degree, his interest had moved again, and he spent a couple of decades in agriculture and the owner of a factory specialising in the production of ammonium chloride. All through this period, he was becoming more and more fascinated by what we now call geology, and geo, earth, study of rocks, ology, study of. Before Hutton's time, even scientists generally assume Archbishop James Ussher's calculation that the earth had been created in 4004 BCE was correct. But it was obvious the surface of the planet had undergone some pretty radical changes during those supposed few thousand years of its existence. This gave rise to the theory later known as catastrophicism, the idea that the world had been shaped by various stupendous catastrophes, most obvious to which was Noah's flood. The flood offered a plausible explanation as to why, for example, the fossils of sea creatures could be found scattered in high mountain slopes. The focus on the flood spawns a variety of catastrophisms that was particularly influential in Hutton's era. Neptunism was largely the brainchild of a German scientist, Gottlob Werner. The world had originally been covered by ocean, and out of that ocean had precipitated the varieties of rocks observable today. The theory had a little trouble explaining volcanic rocks, but he solved this problem in a time-honoured fashion by largely ignoring it, by saying that volcanic processes weren't of much importance. That's a very easy explanation. They're not important. Having sold the factory in 1768, Hutton had time to indulge in his passion of rocks and landscapes. The study of rocks indicated that the volcanic processes were of paramount importance because they brought up molten material from the Earth's interior, then they cooled and solidified to form rock. Sedimentary rocks were produced when sediments, sometimes made up of animal shells, as in limestone, were compressed over long periods of various natural processes. The expression over long periods was important here. As Hutton continued his fieldwork, it became thunderingly obvious to him that it was quite impossible for the earth to be just a few thousand years old. The landscape he was looking at were clearly the product of gradual change over millions of years. Hutton, in fact, at one point wondered if the planet might be infinitely old. His great breakthrough was the realization that landscapes and their concepts could have been created by the very same process we see at work today, and operating at the same rate as they are today. There was no need to invoke colossal upheavals in the past, catastrophes for which the evidence was flimsy at best. The principle of uniform change over geological time was the core of the new breed of geology that Hutton's work initiated. Uniformitarianism. Most geologists bought into it fairly quickly, especially after the idea was championed by Charles Lyell in his Principles of Geology, arguably the most influential book in the history of earth sciences and a major influence on the idea of Charles Darwin. Catastrophicism did live on a little while longer because it seemed to some people that uniformitarianism had problems of its own. So check out James Hutton and his work with geology. Thank you. Hit like, hit subscribe, and look at people who changed the world, because there are things we can take from them still today. Thank you.